You're watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada live stream. I'm Ali Abunimah. And now I do have to warn you that this segment will include frank discussion about sexual violence and torture. And that's something I wrote about in my recent article, Palestinians Recount Gang Rapes by Israeli Soldiers and Dogs. Palestinians from Gaza recently released from Israeli detention have given harrowing descriptions of sexual torture by their Israeli captors, describing rapes by groups of soldiers, forced stripping, forced filming, and sexual assaults and rapes using objects and dogs. The Palestinian Center for Human Rights, which collected the testimonies in recent weeks, said they reflect a systematic policy as part of Israel's genocide and are not isolated incidents. PCHR published 4 testimonies from Palestinian rape victims identified only by initials. The accounts are very explicit, and I'm only going to give summaries that do not include the worst, most horrific details that can be found in the PCHR report or in my article at the Electronic Intifada. N.A., a 42-year-old mother, says she was stripped, restrained, and over a period of days was repeatedly sexually assaulted by multiple Israeli soldiers. She also describes being beaten, electrocuted, insulted, and filmed. She heard cameras clicking and was told her photos could be posted online. A 35-year-old man, reported that a trained dog was used in the sexual assault against him and that the experience caused him serious psychological and physical harm, including a head injury that was stitched up without anesthesia. T.O., a 41-year-old father, describes a soldier violently sexually assaulting him with an object and then doing other unspeakable acts. He says he bled as a result of the attack, was blindfolded, tied up, and moved uh, to another location where he was repeatedly beaten along with other prisoners. M.A., an 18-year-old Palestinian male, says he was repeatedly sexually assaulted with an object and also witnessed similar attacks on other detainees held with him. He also mentions a dog being present during some of that uh, abuse. Now, as we've reported, very little of this has drawn much mainstream attention in the West, where politicians and media have focused on Israel's fake claims of rape on October 7th, something that we've covered extensively on this live stream and at the Electronic Intifada. But one of the very few cases of a Palestinian victim drawing mainstream attention involved a detainee gang raped and severely injured by a group of Israeli soldiers at Israel's Sde Teiman detention camp. It came to light last year after several soldiers were arrested for the attack by Israeli military prosecutors, and a leaked video of the assault was broadcast on Israeli national television. After the video's release in August 2024, the UN Human Rights Office stated that it has, quote, documented a number of videos in recent months which show gross violations of the rights of Palestinians detained by Israel, including acts of ill treatment, torture, sexual violence, and rape. The Sde Teiman video led to outrage in Israel, not about the attack itself, but in defense of the soldiers. It sparked so-called right to rape protests by Israelis demanding the soldiers' release, while senior officials justified their actions. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞 𝐈𝐧𝐭𝐫𝐿, the Israeli military prosecutor who leaked the video in a failed effort to tamp down the outrage over the soldiers' arrests, resigned last month and has been arrested and placed in home detention. She's being investigated over the leak. Now, what I want to bring to your attention now that has come to light since we reported on this story is comments from Ben Marmarelli speaking to Canadian journalist Samira Mohyeddin. Marmarelli represents a Palestinian prisoner held by Israel, and he says that his client, a Palestinian political prisoner, is being subjected to severe abuse, including repeated sexual violence. Here's a clip of Marmarelli commenting not on his own client in this clip, But on that infamous case of the rape of the Palestinian detainee seen in that video leaked in August 2024. Let's listen to him.
A more broader question about the treatment of Palestinian prisoners. Were you surprised at all with the leak of that video showing how prisoners are being treated in Sde Teiman?
The Sde Teiman, listen, what they did is they found the scapegoat because they rape all of the prisoners, in Sde Teiman especially. And not only that they rape all of the prisoners, they have cameras filming 24/7. So if they really wanted to act against the rape and the beatings and the torture, we could have done this years ago. They don't do it. And what they did is, because there was such a international fallout, they decided to pick just one case and go after it. By the way, they dropped the ball on that as well, because that case is over. Nobody's getting any, nobody's been even, nobody's taken to court on this case. The only case that was leaked, they released one of the detainees. That's really the, instead of Iman's detainees, it's under the IDF. It's not under the IPS. Now, instead of Iman, they released the victim of this case without taking his testimony. So, if you understand a little bit about criminal law, that means the case is over.
Right. And then
So that's Israeli lawyer Ben Marmarelli talking to Samira Mahyiddin and saying that, alleging that they rape all of the prisoners. And I want to share some of the other comments Marmarelli made in that interview about his own client, another Palestinian political prisoner. And Ben Marmarelli says, quote, "It's gotten to the point where he asks me not to come anymore because every time I come, they rape him." Marmarelli added that sexual assaults are only part of a bigger pattern of torture and abuse. He says, quote, "Everyone talks about the rape like it's the big issue. The rape is not the big issue. The rape is the least of his problems," Marmarelli said. "The issue is the conditions of the prisoners, and the rape is just one of the many pieces of the puzzle, which is Israel torturing the Palestinian prisoners." Marmarelli also said his client had showed him boot marks on his back, deep marks on his wrists from tight handcuffs, and bruises all over his body. The he also alleges that sexual assaults occur once every few weeks and appear to coincide with the lawyer's visits. Marmarelli says Palestinian political prisoners don't get any visits for years. Their only connection to the outside world is a lawyer's visit. And even that, according to him, is now too dangerous because of the retaliation that Israel metes out. And I want to point to another story that came out this week from the Associated Press. Here you can see the headline: Palestinian deaths in Israeli custody have surged. A prison guard describes rampant abuse. And the Associated Press actually published an account given by a former Israeli prison guard. And here's what the Associated Press says. The former guard at a military prison notorious for its harsh treatment of Palestinians told the AP detainees were routinely shackled with chains and kicked and hit with batons, and that the facility has been dubbed a graveyard because so many prisoners were dying there. He agreed to talk to AP to raise awareness of violence in Israeli prisons and spoke on condition of anonymity due to fear of reprisal. And you'll recall that, as we've reported in recent weeks, since the so-called ceasefire came into effect in Gaza on October 10th, Israel has returned dozens of bodies of Palestinian detainees that were mutilated, decomposed, and disfigured, but showed signs of torture, gagging, blindfolding, even had uh, uh, things tied around their necks, suggestive of really horrific abuse and mistreatment. And many of these bodies have been buried in Gaza without being identified because their condition was so bad. Meanwhile, what's happening in Israel? Well, rapists, torturers continue to be celebrated. And one example of that is the suspects in that notorious Sde Teiman rape case that was shown in the video leaked in August 2024 being celebrated and received as heroes at a recent court hearing. Let's take a look at that video. What a sick society. Those scenes of celebration are matched by many comments from senior Israeli politicians praising these suspects, dehumanizing Palestinian prisoners. And as the Palestinian Center for Human Rights points out, thousands of Palestinians are still held in these military detention camps and prisons with no access from human rights organizations or from the International Red Cross. So all the abuses that we've just talked about are still continuing. All of this is under the banner of what Donald Trump calls a ceasefire and peace. So keep the Palestinian prisoners in your thoughts. Keep demanding their freedom. They are far from they are far from freedom, and they are still suffering horrendous abuse in Israeli detention.